Welcome back to Epilogues, an unpacking of the weekly Haftorah. You're listening to Rabbi Yaakov Trump. This week we're going to investigate the Haftorah of Haftorah Lech Lecha, the topic being the chosenness of the nation of Israel. This Haftorah is drawn from Yeshayahu Perek Mem, Pasuk Chav Zayin, to Perek Mem Aleph, Pasuk Tes Zayin. If you are interested in the context, this is actually the Haftorah, or the words you're found directly after the Haftorah of Shabbos Nachamu. Shabbos Nachamu is the beginning of Perek Mem in Yeshayahu. This continues it. And here's how it goes. We're going to look at it in a few paragraphs because of the thematic distinctions and the way it is paragraphed in Tanakh. The first paragraph runs from Perek Mem, Pasuk Chav Zayin, to the end of the Perek, Pasuk Lamed Aleph. And it starts off with a question. The question is, Lama Somar Yaakov, why, O Jacob, this is referring to the nation of Israel, do you say, Usitaber Yisrael, and does Israel say, Nistara darki me Hashem, my way is hidden from Hashem, ume Elokai, mishpati yavor, and from my God, my judgment is overlooked. This is the question that they are asking, and the prophet is telling them, why are you asking this difficult question? And he responds, have you not heard that Hashem is the one who created the heavens and the earth? He is never tired. He perceives everything, and he gives those who need it. He gives those who are persecuted strength, and those who have trusted and hoped in Hashem, Kovei Hashem yachalifu koach, that those who hope in Hashem will have renewed strength. Lo yigo yelchu v'lo yafu. They will not be undermined. They will not be exhausted. So this is the first paragraph. Let's go back to the question. What is the question the prophet is telling them or admonishing them for having? What is that specific question? So most of the Torah should say it refers to the nation of Israel who have given up hope of seeing a redemption because of the length and the pain of the exile they're experiencing. The Malbim digs it deeper over here by saying, and in fact, there's another type of giving up here as well. It's referring to the people who give up because they feel that it is all predetermined. Meaning, Ein Chayker, Hashem is not really looking at everything. Hashem is not really involved because of this. So it's not just that they're giving up on redemption, they're giving up really on Hashem as well. And the prophet is saying, why are you giving up? Why are you airing this voice of helplessness, of apathy, of fate? How is this issue addressed? So the Abarbanel actually paints us out very carefully that there are two claims that the nation of Israel have through the period of exile. The first is that Hashem doesn't clearly notice the details, the people. He may look at the nation as a whole, the world as a whole, but he's clearly not focusing on the individuals. That's Nistara darki me Hashem, my way is hidden from Hashem. But more than that, Hashem is also not involved in this world. There's no hashgacha or providence as to what happens or doesn't happen. And that is Umelakai mishpati yavor, my judgment, meaning there's leis din v'leis dayan. Hashem's not really involved in this all. Those are the two conclusions that people come to after seeing there's prolonged suffering without accountability of the nation of Israel in exile. And the answer is that Hashem both knows, so there's no end to his knowledge and understanding, and he also doesn't care. Hashem will give the strength and the power to those who so desperately need it. So that's really the theological question that's being answered, that Yeshayahu is trying to tell the nation of Israel who are going to exile. Just out of interest, Yeshayahu was talking at the time when the northern tribes of Israel are about to go into exile, when the northern kingdom is going to be exiled by the Assyrians. And so this is going to be something which is going to be very practical, which will be very much what the message people will need to have when they go into the exile. So now he uses a certain proof as to the importance of this concept, and that is the beginning of Perek Mem Aleph, Pasuk Aleph to Pasuk Zayin. In this section, he turns to the nations and he says to them, why are you making all this noise and all this din? He says, Mi ha'ir mi mizrach tzedek yikra'eu l'raglai, who is coming out from the east and is going to be called Yitain Lefonov Goyim Melachim Yerd Yitain Ke'afar Chaboy, is going to take dominion and power over all the nations and chase them away. Is going to be this element of retribution and judgment which is being made. And there's many beautiful poetic metaphors just in this section about how Hashem will control this process and this process of judgment. So you say, okay, well, it's shifted a little bit. Why is he talking to the Gentile nations of earth? Who is this person who's coming from the east? So first of all, what is this judgment about? The Metzudas David points out that that Hashem will have to prove that Israel was chosen through the redemption of his nation. They and the nations around are asking, Why is it? Or is it really that the nation of Israel are chosen? Surely they've been rejected because of the length of the exile and the fact that they've always remained a disenfranchised, lower than the average member of society in whichever society they join. The anti-Semitism follows them through whichever culture and whichever country they move. So maybe Hashem has forgotten them. When redemption will come, Hashem will prove through that judgment that ultimately he was right and his nation was correct as well. The Malvin says that this is not an attempt to prove or ratify Israel, but it's also the oneness of Hashem, and the nations will abandon their pagan deities at which point as well. Who is this figure who's coming from the east to bring this retribution? So the Ibn Ezra says this refers to the future. It refers to Cyrus the Great, who will come and destroy the Babylonians, who destroyed the Assyrians. So he will bring retribution. He will be the helper or the agent of the divine. Even though he has his own agenda, he will be the agent of the divine to bring about retribution. Know that he is coming. That's what it's referring to. So it's a geopolitical expression of Hashem's will in this world as well. However, Chazal take a different tact and they say it's not referring to the future, it's referring to the past. The individual we're referring to over here is Avraham Avinu, who comes from the east, and he comes to the land of Israel. Why is Avraham Avinu the example or the exemplar of this idea of judgment that's so necessary now? So the Mitzvah says because when he came to the world, people still didn't listen, meaning Hashem gave his message. Rashi says it's about people adhering to the God of Avraham and learning monotheism. That Hashem says, I sent my messengers. The Abba Benel takes us one step further. He's saying at the end of time, the nations will say, wait a second, we didn't have a chance. We didn't know the truth. How could we know? It's so unfair. And Hashem says, well, actually, I sent my messenger, and only those who really cared joined onto my messenger. There were Yisros in the world, but there were Amaleks in the world as well. The people who listened and noted what was happening to the Abrahamic children, and there were those who didn't want to know what was happening to the Abrahamic children as well. What is the secret weapon that Avraham Avinu wields? So you notice that the description over here is Yitain ke'afar chabar. His sword will be like dust. What does that mean? The Noam Megadim says a very beautiful idea that Avraham Avinu's keys to success was his comment, Anachi afar va'efer, I am dust and ashes. His intense humility. And that intense humility is his sword. Sometimes we think that the only way to win is to have might, and might is right, but that's not the Jewish threshold. Sometimes we need to defend ourselves, but that's not who we seek to be. The Jews have never been a conquering nation, never been a nation seeking to crusade or jihad the rest of the world. Yitain ke'afar chaboy, the sword will be one of humility, the humility with which Jews have lived throughout the course of history. Then we move into the next paragraph, which is Pasuk Ches to Pasuk Yud Gimel over here, where it talks about how it's not just Avraham, but it's now Ata Yisrael Abdi, you Israel, my servant, Yaakov Asher Bacharticha, Jacob, who has been chosen, and he talks about how he's going to save the nation of Israel. I did not despise you, I chose you. Don't fear, because I'm going to bring you back, and you're going and people will suddenly now respect you when you do gain power as well. That's what's being described over here. So what is the transition from the previous section? The previous section was talking about the nations and Avraham. Rashi says that the transfer over here is from Avraham Avinu being so special because he found me, and you are so special because I chose you because he found me. So Israel is an expression of this as well. In fact, in the words of Rabbi Dr. Mendel Hirsch in his introduction to this Haftorah, the son of Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, I think it's a tremendous insight, and I'm going to read the words of Rabbi Mendel Hirsch over here. The parallel between the fate and the mission of Israel with the impressive accomplishments of its ancestor Avram explains why these words of Yeshayahu were chosen as the Haftorah for this particular parasha. Avraham's isolation from a world that did not understand him, his long drawn-out patient endurance, waiting for the fulfillment of the promise he had received, his rock-like confidence, his glorious victory over the all-conquering kings of the nations, drunk with their great successes, his still more glorious victory of his self-perfection and winning his son to the same lofty height of perfection that shines forth from the summit of Mount Moriah through the ages. These are the prototypes of the calling and the fate of his descendants and the ultimate victory of the principles they carry for the world throughout the ages. That principle is Heyeh Bracha, the endeavor not to be blessed, but for themselves to become a blessing to others. That blessing expresses itself in noble humaneness, then that without any consideration of nationality, color, or other limitation knows no higher joy than to make others happy, shining forth from the loving, benevolent deeds of an Avraham. This unselfish love, practiced in Avram's tradition truly for God's sake, is that which must be added to justice and righteousness to bring the true happiness of mankind. The battle for and the ultimate victory of this principle forms the essence of the universal history. So our Haftorah is looking at Avraham Avinu as the paradigm for what Israel represents, despite the difficult and the vicissitudes of the complexity that Avraham Avinu went through, similarly to what Israel goes through as well. And finally, the Haftorah closes from Pasuk Yudana to Zion, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu turns to Israel. Now the metaphor is a tolas, a worm. Al tir'i tolas, Yaakov, don't fear a worm of Israel. Because although that Mesei Yisrael Ani Azartich Nu'um Hashem, I'm going to help you, even those who've been killed, the very few numbers that have been remaining, and I'm going to now spread forth the chaff. I'm going to bring and I'm going to sprout you forth in the fields upon waters. Va'tota gil ba'Hashem b'kdosh Yisrael k'tisalel, and you're going to rejoice in Hashem. Who are these people? This says the Mitzvahs refers to the Jews who are returning from exile. Sort of these images we've had the opportunity of seeing in our generation. When you see the images of Yemenite Jews, Ethiopian Jews getting onto planes, never seen planes in their life, walking to the land of Israel, Jews crossing the desert of Sudan, many dying, and understanding the idea of coming back and the idea of the reaffirmation of the chosenness of the nation of Israel. In fact, the Medrash Rabbah in Bereshis Rabbah in Pei Gimel Hey, as quoted the Barbanel, talks about a argument that's had between Teven, Kash, and Moitz and Chita. So you have all these different elements of the a grain which are arguing with each other. So there's the stalks, there's the chaff, and there's the ears that are arguing with each other. Each one saying that they are really the reason why the farmer planted the field. And the kernel of wheat says to everybody else is wait a little bit and we'll see what happens. And it comes the time for the granary, and the owner of the field comes and he starts winnowing. He takes the chaff and he lets the chaff go out into the wind, and then he takes the stalks and he puts them on the ground, and he makes a fire out of them, and then he takes the ear and he turns it into flour. And at that point in time, all the pieces of the grain realized that it was the kernel, the grain itself, which was really the point of the whole process. And that's exactly what's happening, says the Midrash, quoting our pasuk in Yeshayahu Mem Aleph, Tizareim Ve'ruach Tisaim Usarat Hafitzasam, that there's going to come the time at the end of history that this small little ear of grain, which everybody ignored and thought it was the long, beautiful stems and the attractive chaff which covered, and seed covers, which was really important. But there'll come a time when all they'll be thrown out and burnt, and the realization will be that it was for the fruit, and that was Israel. At that point in time, then Atata Gilba Hashem Bikdosh Yisrael Tisalal, then Israel will be able to celebrate, and that's the hope, is that we get to see that day. Bimhera of Yamen. In the meantime, have a wonderful and meaningful day and a beautiful Shabbat.